Which Cathie Wood stock is the better buy? Coinbase Global or Zoom Video Communications? Of course, Cathie Wood is known to be attracted to innovative growth stocks, and these two are certainly innovative growth stocks. And both of these were huge beneficiaries of the coronavirus pandemic. Zoom video communications, of course, we were all working from home, learning from home, and that increased the usage of Zoom's software, its video communication device. But it it has still maintained a semblance of growth here. If we look at the first metric I'm going to compare the two on, Zoom's revenue growth has remained positive, 4.87% in its most recent quarter. Of course, it exploded during the pandemic, absolutely exploded, nearly 400% revenue growth. No one expected that to persist longer term. However, what has been impressive is that it hasn't turned negative. That you can't say the same for Coinbase. Coinbase also exploded during the pandemic when cryptocurrencies were all the rage and everybody you met anywhere was talking about cryptocurrencies. Now, revenue growth has turned negative for several quarters, negative 55% in its most recent quarter. And so, if I was projecting out the next 3 to 5 years, I would give Zoom Video Communications the advantage of revenue growth going forward. The next metric I wanted to look at is operating profit margin. And so, a little bit of a difference here in that Coinbase was ahead of Zoom Video for a while here when usage and trading on its platform exploded during the earlier stages of 2021. It was generating very healthy operating profit margins. Unfortunately, those have collapsed and turned negative, negative 23.5% operating profit margin in the trailing 12 months. Meanwhile, Zoom Video also benefited from the boom during the pandemic, and its trailing 12-month operating profit margin soared over 25%. Its operating profit margin has also come down, but it's still positive. It's still generating a nice healthy 14.4% operating profit margin. So again, going forward and looking backward, I would give the advantage to operating profit margin to Zoom Video Communications. The next metric I wanted to look at is cash flow from operations, again in the trailing 12 months. Going back to, we don't have very much data on these two companies. They're relatively young, so I could only go back a couple of years. And Zoom Video Communications cash flow has soared starting in 2020, and it hasn't really came back down too much, right? It was above 1.5 billion. Now it's down to 1.288 billion, but it's sustaining elevated levels. It's not decrease. It's not turning negative. Unlike Coinbase Global, where cash flow from operations soared to over 8 billion, and then it collapsed, now turning negative 1.82 billion in its most recent trailing 12 months. Again, like what we've seen so far, going forward and looking backward, I would give the advantage to Zoom Video Communications. It's unlikely that Coinbase is going to experience another boom like environment in cryptocurrencies like happened during the pandemic when we were all locked down at home. We all had that extra money from stimulus checks, and so we went online, and they were looking. There was more trading, there was more activity, there was more engagement. That's unlikely to happen again, and it's clear that without that kind of robust activity, Coinbase cannot turn positive cash flows, cannot turn positive profits. However, Zoom has done a solid job, even if the business isn't booming, generating cash flows and profit margins. The next thing I wanted to look at is average diluted shares outstanding. A lot of tech stocks are doing good job increasing cash flow from operations because they're using a lot of share-based compensation, and that shows up in a lot of diluted shares. That's not so much the case with these two. Coinbase's shares outstanding has increased from a little over 200 million to 224 million, about 10 to 15% growth in average shares outstanding. Zoom Video Communications, not as much dilution, from about 292 million shares outstanding to 302 million shares outstanding. So also doing a better job in not diluting shareholders. So across the board so far, 4 out of 4 metrics that we looked at, Zoom Video Communications has the advantage. The final metric I'm going to look at is valuation. So looking at the price to sales ratio forward, and this is the metric I chose to use because of inconsistent profitability and cash flow from Coinbase. So I chose to use price to sales forward. And looking at this metric, Coinbase is more expensive at 5973 compared to Zoom at 4983. So Zoom is better across all 4 of the metrics I looked at, and it's also trading at a less expensive valuation. So it makes the decision relatively easy for me. The best Cathie Wood stock to buy between these two is Zoom Video Communications. All right, so that's all I've got for this video. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time. I want to thank the Motley Fool for sponsoring this video. Visit fool.com/parkev for the 10 best stocks to buy now.